Maine, the northernmost state in America, usually thought of as a quaint, safe vacation destination. Our motto is, the way life should be. But did you know serial killer John Joseph Joubert was raised in Maine and was convicted of 3 stabbing murders of young boys? Or the unsolved abduction of baby girl Ayla Reynolds, supposedly stolen from her bed near Christmas 2011. Her body has never been found. These are just 2 of the main stories Murderific has covered. We cover crimes from all areas and Maine cases as well. Murderific True Crime Podcast, hosted by me, Bernadette, can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, or go to murderific.com. We will be executing podcasts 1 crime at a time.
Murder and Such contains true stories about murders, the macabre, true crime, serial killers, and other dark subject matter. This includes adult themes, explicit language, descriptions of gore, violence, and other information provided by news articles, witness testimony, and public record. Murder and Such is not intended for all audiences, and although warnings will be set in place, listener discretion is still advised.
Oh, hey! I'm back. I know, it's been a minute since I've been on your podcatcher, or whatever you want to call it, but I am back with a new episode, number 63. But I want to thank my lovely, dedicated, incredibly generous patrons for helping me rebuild the studio, and hopefully I sound a little bit better for this episode. I got some new gear, and I've been itching to use it, so let me just kick this off with a couple of Patreon shoutouts. So since the last episode, and I know they're kind of hit or miss lately, I've gotten some new friends over on Patreon, and they should be getting their Richard Chase stickers very soon. So thank you to the lovely Patty Martinez for her donation. Another thank you to the fantastic Brandy Bowden. And last, but certainly not least, I want to thank the incredible Carmi Gedemi. You people help fund the show, and I am forever in your debt. But if you would like to donate to the show, I only have one tier, and that's just for a single dollar per episode to get it early and ad-free. And if I don't put out an episode, I don't charge you for that. So you can find the Murder and Such Patreon at patreon.com/murderandsuch. But if you would like to help me out for free, you can always leave me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. So thank you to all of the new patrons, the former patrons, the new 5-star reviews that I've gotten, and the incredible amount of love and support that you all give me. You folks give me the strength of 1,000 dumb, diabetic, balding podcasters, and I can't thank you enough for everything that you do. But without further ado, let's jump into this. Best friends. Pretty much all of us know someone who we would consider a best friend. Sure, it can change over time. Like, a childhood best friend may not be as close with you now as they were back then. High school friends, college friends, hell, even some of my parents' best friends from college I've referred to as my aunt or uncle just because they're fantastic, lifelong friends of theirs. But friends, much like any relationship, can have its ups and downs, and can even fizzle out. I can remember back in elementary school, I befriended a kid named Josh. Our mothers were good friends, and thus, we became best friends. spending the night at each other's house, staying up all night playing Mega Man on the original Nintendo. But then we just kind of grew apart. Yeah, I mean, I'm friends with him on Facebook, but the whole, friends on Facebook is kind of a vague term these days. But middle school and high school, we didn't talk much. But I believe that's where the term childhood friends comes from the most. Now, I know this may seem hard to believe. That's a joke, trust me. But I never attended college. But college can be a gateway to many things. The pursuit of your professional career, possibly even the start of it. But college can also be a time for experimentation and new experiences. Trying out different courses that might not completely align with your professional endeavors. If you were ever sheltered, it might be your first rager or massive party, or maybe even if you weren't sheltered, you could possibly find yourself at the biggest party you could ever imagine. But college can also be a very troubling time. Not just for crunch time and finals, but there's almost a culture of some horrible things that can happen to students and non-students alike. I would be mistaken if I didn't bring up these statistics, even if they don't necessarily pertain to this story at all. You remember how I said that you can find yourself at a massive party? Well, according to RAINN, RAINN, which is the National Sexual Assault Help website, it's estimated that there are 11.2% of all students experience rape or sexual assault through physical force. And that's amongst all graduate and undergraduate students, and that's with a massive amount of 4 out of 5 students not reporting it due to reasons such as them believing that it was a personal matter, where they feared that the police or security would not do anything about it, or they didn't want the rapist to face any backlash. I'm looking at you, Brock Turner, you fucking local piece of shit. He lives about 8 miles away from here. But another thing that students might get into is, well, drugs. Most fresh students of college age are usually below the age of 25. 25 being the average age that most experts will say that the brain is fully developed, which I have discussed on the show prior. I am in no way, shape, or form trying to justify illicit drug use or sexual assault in this matter, but when it comes to the legalities of facing charges for something that you might have done while under the age of 25, you can still be prosecuted for those things at the age of 18. But judgment can be impaired when you throw drugs into the mix. Now, according to AddictionCenter.com, it said that substance abuse amongst college students is hardly a new trend. From the 1970s on, rates of alcohol consumption and binge drinking have remained fairly constant. But sometimes the things have changed when the types of drugs that are being used have also changed. There used to be a drug named Quaaludes, but those don't even exist anymore. But with more drugs that have found their ways onto the market, be it prescription or not, the college world has become inundated with experimentation, abuse, and has resulted in assaults, death, and even murder. Now, we've all seen college-based party movies, whether it's Animal House, Old School, or Neighbors. You've likely witnessed someone either smoking weed, binge drinking, or using even more harmful drugs such as cocaine or psychoactive drugs like ecstasy or mushrooms. A lot of students find college as a time for experimentation, like I said. But even if you think it's not having an effect on your mind, and hell, even at that age, I thought I was invincible, it can most definitely have an effect on your mental composure and composition. This is the story of one such case. But as always, my name is Hunter, and you're listening to Murder and Such, and this is a case of 2 young women who were best friends for a few years and a perfect combination of stress, partying, and drugs that turned these 2 young women from best friends to murderer and victim. This is episode 63, Luisa Cutting.
Tonight, we're learning more about the murder of a Radford University student.
Gene and Robin, I dug through search warrants today to find out just more details about the crime that has this entire community shocked.
Search warrants paint a gruesome picture of the crime scene as police walked into the off-campus apartment the two shared on Clement Street.
But being at the scene, I can tell you there was a lot of stab wounds, an awful lot of stab wounds.
I'm so sorry.
Both the defense and prosecution pointed to an apparent psychotic episode brought on by a laundry list of drugs, including cocaine, Xanax, and Adderall, and a lack of sleep.
The interview can only be described as a rambling and bizarre series of episodes where the defendant's praying out loud, mentions the apocalypse, and says at one point she did cocaine with the devil.
Now, one thing that I found particularly interesting is that I've been watching this show called Defending Jacob. It's available on Apple TV Plus, and one part that I found relevant to this story was Chris Evans's character talking to Jacob and telling him how whatever he posts on social media, people can grab it and use it against him. Well, I'll get to that in just a bit. But social media, we all use it. Well, the vast majority of people use it, unless you still use a Nokia 3310 phone, which is pretty much a fossil by today's standards. But Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, TikTok, and all of those keep us connected in one way, shape, or form. I'm a firm believer that not everything comes through on social media, and people like to curate the content that they put out. But breaking it down, Instagram is usually just photos accompanied by a text post or some emojis or no description at all. But most of the posts are carefully curated. Whether it's a photo of your food, a selfie, landscape, animals, people usually share things through a picturesque medium. Now, Snapchat is a little more temporary. If you share something to your story, it's about 24 hours until it's gone unless you remove it first. And if you share something privately with someone else, they generally have 1 to 2 views before it's gone for good. But it's also held on their servers. Now, Facebook is generally a medium for memes, photos, videos, text posts, politics, all that shit. You can go as deep into detail as you'd like and post as much as you want. And there's even also groups that you can join that have people of a similar interest as you, and also pages for politicians, celebrities, public figures, and pretty much whatever the hell else you're looking for. Now, Twitter can also do the same thing, but there's a character limit on your posts unless you create an entire thread. And now TikTok is, well, to be honest, it's big, but usually just video clips that people make. And if you ever see me on TikTok, be sure to send a brick straight to my head. I don't belong on there. But social media in and of itself is where you can share the most private or public parts of your life. But a lot of it is carefully curated. There is a culture behind only sharing the aspects of your life that you want people to see compared to how life might be treating you or the ones around you, even if it's poorly. Sure, some people put it all out on social media and to each their own. But if you're not familiar with the term vague book, let me fill you in real quick. According to UrbanDictionary.com, vague booking is an intentionally vague Facebook status update that prompts friends to ask what's going on or is possibly a cry for help. An example is that Mary and Mark are possibly in a relationship. So Mary will post, wondering if it's all worth it. But then Mark posts, thinking that it was a bad idea. Now, somebody who's close to Mark and Mary will kind of sit there and wonder, have you talked to Mark? He's vague booking again. I wonder if he's back with Mary. Now, personally, you can do whatever the hell you want on social media, but there's always some sort of tracking that when it comes back to it. I've seen a lot of people looking at stuff true crime related, like a mass shooter, and then they'll scour the internet for their social media handles to see what kind of political party they align themselves with, and somehow put that moniker on them, that somehow because of their political affiliation, that's the reason why they did what they did. Hell, even some people who are big-name podcasters have been known to go on late-night drunken Twitter tangents spouting off their real beliefs, which can include mocking gay, lesbian, or trans people, being racist, or even talking shit to their listeners. But I'm not here to talk about them. But people generally only show you on social media what they want you to see. But what could be lying underneath the iPhone or keyboard could be something much more grim. A side of their life that they don't want the public to see. A lavish, party-hard lifestyle that's slowly eating away at their better judgment, personal ethics, and fueling a demon that they can't suppress. Alexa Cannon was born on July 17th of 1998 in Roanoke, Virginia. A beautiful woman with hopes and aspirations of changing the world and helping it become a better place, considering that she was studying to major in psychology. From pictures, you can see a vibrant white smile and long dark hair that cascaded downward. Now, after graduating Patrick Henry High School, she applied and was accepted to Radford University, still in her home state of Virginia. Much like anyone, she had a favorite color, and that was blue. She partook in a few missionary ventures around the world, considering that she was a devout Christian and trying to bring the teachings of God to others and put her money where her mouth was and use her hands and spirit to bring love and joy to those around her. Even if it wasn't in person physically, Alexa would try to make every opportunity to try and help those in need, including a post that she made on Facebook that said, quote, "Want to join me in supporting a good cause? I'm raising money for Alzheimer's Association, and your contribution will make an impact. Whether you donate $5 or $500, every little bit helps. Thank you for your support. I've included information about Alzheimer's Association below." End quote. She was upbeat, happy. A typical college kid filled with life and love. The textbook style example of what a, quote, good kid looks like, even at just 20 years old. Sure, she may have had a couple drinks here or there or went to a couple house parties, but she was in college. And college, like I said, can be a time for experimentation. Now, Luisa Inez Tudela Harris Cutting was a 21-year-old from Jeffersonton, Virginia, who was also studying at Radford University, and she had been best friends with Alexa since 2016. She was also a very bright and vibrant person. She was bilingual, and on her social media, she would recite perfect English and Spanish, so much that she had even become the president of the Radford Latino Student Alliance. Now, both of these girls were going to Radford University, and they were both, as they say, Highlanders, which the Highlander was deemed the college's mascot on December 9th of 1981. Now, the social media aspect of these two is pretty straightforward. They followed each other, liked each other's posts, and even posted some pictures together, like this post from Alexa's now deleted Instagram on June 25th of 2018.
A year ago today, my best friend took me on the greatest, craziest, and most incredible adventure of my life. taking me to one of the 7 wonders of the world, even though she's now been there 5 times now, because she knew I'd be dying to go. Now that's a best friend. Having the adventure of a lifetime, and now exactly a month from now, we're going to be living together. Pray for us, please, and thank you.
A few exchanges between Alexa and Luisa had followed, but they were embracing, endearing. They were full of life, full of love, and almost tangible. Saying things like they loved each other, of course, with Alexa and Luisa trying to one-up each other by saying, "I love you more." But they had the plan to move into some housing together, but not so they would only just be friends, but they would also be roommates. Now, Luisa obviously had an Instagram, but that's since been deleted and nothing has been archived from it, aside from some of the comments that she had left on Alexa's account. She was very much more of a Twitter user. I'll save you the re-explanation of what happens on Twitter, but a lot of it is just your typical late teens, early 20s kind of stuff. And from what it seems, I don't believe that Alexa ever had a Twitter. But some of her posts were pretty nondescript. Here's an example of a tweet that she had posted on December 25th of 2018.
It's so nice sitting with my brother and my sister-in-law next to the fire catching up.
And on Christmas Day of 2018.
I haven't been this happy for Christmas in a very long time. Just know I have people in heaven sending me blessings.
Now, I'm probably gonna shock all of you when I say that I've never been a big fan of The Bachelor. But apparently, Luisa was. And she said this on January 7th of 2019 in a tweet.
I'm still not over that Blake isn't the Bachelor.
Whoever the hell Blake is, I will never know. And please feel free not to let me, fill me in on that. But some tweets were hilarious jokes. Some were regarding, like, smoking weed, or some re-uploaded vines that are actually pretty great. But just the typical stuff that you'd see at someone her age's Twitter profile. To be fair, I still kinda suck at Twitter. So if you follow the show there, I'm sorry, I barely update it. I'm apparently old because I've been getting shit from the AARP in the mail since 2008. But I digress. Nothing too out of the ordinary for the longest of times. But we can all just about imagine what it's like when best friends move in with each other. It's a different paradigm when you add bills, cleanliness, and personal space into the mix. I, for one, can tell you that I'm a pretty shitty roommate. I don't pick up after myself as much as I should, and I think my grass is about a foot tall right now. But it's also been hot as hell, and the neighbor kid hasn't come by so I can pay him to mow. But there was a post that Alexa had made a few months prior to the post that you heard earlier. And this was made on March 28th of 2018. And something about it just doesn't sit right in the end. Here's that post.
I met this girl 2 years ago online and somehow ended up living across from each other for a year. This summer she was the equivalent to my mom in Cancun, and unimaginably she still puts up with me. And now we're living together next year. I love you more, Lou. And everyone pray that we don't kill each other this year.
Now, getting back to where I mentioned before about drug usage. In college, it's kind of common. But to what degree is someone taking it too far? Drinking is perfectly legal if you're 21, but chances are more often than not that you'll find some alcohol on a college campus. Drinking is okay in moderation. Smoking weed? I personally don't partake, but I think it's safer than alcohol, but it's okay in moderation. But there's party and psychoactive drugs as well that can show up on the campus doorstep. Ecstasy, acid, mushrooms, cocaine, prescription drugs like Klonopin, Xanax, and Adderall, Even sometimes you can unfortunately find hard drugs like heroin, meth, and even crack cocaine. Now, Luisa had an addiction to some of these things to an extent, stating in a Twitter post on January 12th of 2019 that read,
I have decided tonight will be a drunken adventure. Everything else is overruled.
But things were also apparently fracturing in the household as well, because a tweet earlier had stated, quote,
My roommate forgot to pay the gas bill, and they won't come and turn it on till Monday. And now there's a snowstorm on the way. Well, thank God I'll be drunk all day.
It goes without saying that mistakes happen. I've forgotten to pay a couple bills. You probably have too. Or maybe I'm just that forgetful and you're all perfect angels and I'm sorry that I've burdened you with my presence. But shit happens. People forget. Yeah, a snowstorm is coming and that sucks. But did she drink to keep herself warm? I can't say for sure. That's purely speculation. But the next day, Luisa actually got herself some incredible news that she tweeted about.
I woke up to an internship. I am crying right now.
What was that internship for? Honestly, I'll never know. But that's some truly incredible news for her. For anybody. But it was around that time that Luisa was starting to use more and more drugs, and then finding herself addicted and somewhat manic. Her Facebook and Snapchat started showing pictures of herself with a filter that added devil horns to her head, and stating that she was a devilette, a stark contrast to Alexa's angelic attitude. Her drinking continued, as well as her marijuana usage, pill usage, and she started getting into cocaine a lot more frequently, completely throwing moderation to the wind. But this one tweet that she posted on January 10th of 2019 had an incredibly ominous tone.
I know that death is coming, but I still can't wrap my head around it.
The early morning hours of January 24th of 2019, Alexa and Luisa get into an argument. What it pertained to? I have no idea. Possibly the bill that didn't get paid, but we will never know to be sure. Luisa was very much high at this time, likely coming off of somewhat of a repetitious onslaught of drugs or chemicals. One that not only compromised her physical health, but also her mental health. The screaming lasted for a while, and the neighbors took notice of what they were yelling about. But at around 7:30 a.m. that morning, the police received a 911 call from their neighbors stating that there was an excessive amount of screaming and someone heard a reference to a knife. Immediately, the police were dispatched to the area to attend to what they thought would be a domestic situation. But what they found when arriving at 1208 Clement Street, Apartment G, would shake the students and citizens around the area to its core. When the officer arrived at the scene, he knocked on the door, and when it opened, it revealed 21-year-old Luisa Cutting, covered in Alexa Cannon's blood. The arresting officer was Lieutenant Andy Wilburn with the Radford Police Department.
The female opened the door, and she uttered the words, "Arrest me, I killed her."
They handcuffed Luisa and put her in the back of a squad car, then booked her into the Radford Police Department for second-degree murder. Immediately, they were issued a search warrant to check the premises, and that's where they found the body of Alexa Cannon, stabbed to death nearly 40 times, and a serrated butcher's knife still embedded in her mouth.
But being at the scene, I can tell you there was a lot of stab wounds, an awful lot of stab wounds.
When he was asked if he found a motive of why she murdered Alexa, he had this to say.
It does seem random. And the more information that our folks can gather, hopefully we can build up some kind of lead up, some events that led to this.
An argument between two best friends had just turned into a full-blown murder. When the officers searched the apartment, they had found a multitude of other things that could have given more information as to why Luisa would kill Alexa in such a cold-blooded fashion. In Luisa's bedroom, they found marijuana, Xanax, Adderall, alcohol, a grinder, and multiple smoking devices. In the kitchen, they said that they had found a brown chalk-like substance, which I never found if they determined what it was. But they found Alexa's cell phone underneath her left hand, and the fourth item on the evidence log was the black knife taken off of the victim. Of course, things spread on social media very quickly. A Snapchat video was posted of Luisa covered in blood and her hands cuffed behind her back when she was being put into the squad car. The students of Radford University were shaken, scared, and confused. Why or even how could something like this happen to a flourishing young woman like Alexa, and what would compel Luisa to carry out such a horrific act against her best friend? Now, Luisa's first arraignment would be held the following Friday at 1 p.m. in the Radford General District Court. In an effort to try to console the Radford University students and the staff, the university president, Brian Hemphill, released a couple of statements. Quote, "Dear students, faculty, and staff, earlier today, the Radford University Police Department distributed a message to students, faculty, and staff regarding an off-campus incident that occurred this morning. Without question, this is a difficult day for our campus and our community. These days and months to come will also be difficult as we extend our deepest sympathies as well as our thoughts and prayers to the family and loved ones of our student who is not being publicly identified at this time. Radford University is a close-knit community and one in which we take great pride in the many connections and strong relationships we develop as we live, learn, and work within our inclusive and supportive community. These qualities are cornerstones of our university and embody the role we have played for more than a century. I encourage all students, faculty, and staff to utilize the counseling services that are being provided. In talking with others and sharing our hopes, dreams, and fears, we find comfort in knowing we are never alone. At difficult times like this, it is critical that we come together as one Radford family and continue the great work that is occurring each and every day on our campus as we honor those we have lost. With deepest sympathy, Brian O. Hemphill, Ph.D., President." And the same day, the Radford University Police Department had also released a statement to the staff and students of the college, also stating to them that there are counseling services available to everyone. And their statement had said, quote, "Please be advised that this morning there is an isolated incident that occurred at an off-campus location. There was no immediate threat to campus or the broader community. This incident is under the jurisdiction of the City of Radford Police Department and is being handled accordingly. Due to the nature of this incident, which resulted in the death of one of our students, grief counselors will be available both today, Thursday, January 24th, 2019, from 5 o'clock p.m. to 9 o'clock p.m., and tomorrow, Friday, January 25th, 2019, from 2 o'clock p.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. in the lower level of Heth Hall. The counseling services are being coordinated through the Division of Student Affairs. This is a tragic moment for our campus community and the Radford family. During this difficult time, we ask that you provide support to your fellow Highlanders. And also on that same day, the Latino Student Alliance, the group that Luisa was the president of, had released a statement. And that said, quote, "It is with deepest condolences that we share with the Radford University and Latino Student Alliance community the news of the passing of one of our members. LSA embraces the values of friendship and family, so know that your concerns are ours as well. If you'd like to express your feelings over the matter, please consider contacting counseling services through Student Affairs. At this moment, on behalf of the family and friends, we request that any information you have, you handle with the utmost discretion." Then, on the following day, the university president, Brian Hemphill, had released another statement that read, quote, "Alexa was pursuing a degree in psychology and was planning to graduate next May. She was very involved on campus and was a proud member of several organizations. Like every Highlander, Alexa had a full life ahead of her, a life poised to make a great impact on those she would have encountered, the career she was pursuing, and the communities in which she would have lived. Please join me in expressing the Radford family's deepest sympathies and lasting condolences to the Cannon family and all of those impacted by Alexa's passing and this inexcusable and heinous act." Now, with Luisa behind bars, the students started planning to come together in a celebration of life and love behind Alexa's tragic death. On Wednesday, January 30th of 2019, the students, staff, and even citizens and strangers all came together to lift up the memory and life of Alexa Cannon. The celebration included hundreds of people dressed in Alexa's favorite color of blue. They stood in the campus recreational center and shared stories of what it was like to study with, live with, and the admiration they all had for Alexa's determination. A student and some of the staff took turns at the podium sharing their stories. Here is one such student.
We had many long nights studying together, sharing laughs and tears. Sharing jokes. She was always so happy, and she captured every moment that she could on Snapchat or Instagram to share with those that she loved outside of Radford.
After the indoor gathering was finished, the citizens and students all walked towards the fountain on campus, which was illuminated blue, and they handed out blue glow sticks to everyone. They held hands, they cried, they shared the moment, and they even sang some songs. The tragedy hit harder than almost any crime in the Radford area ever before.
I think it speaks to the nature of the Highlander family. This is what we talked about. It's not a tagline. This is who we are. It's about looking at how we support each other, how we come together in times of need. And so it speaks to the caring community that I know we have. And I was proud to see the faculty, the staff, the students come out and support the Cannon family in their darkest moment that they've ever experienced. And so I was proud of our Highlanders last night.
But everyone was still left with the question of why? Why would Luisa do this to her best friend, her roommate, the one that she went to Cancun together? What had finally happened that made Luisa tip over the edge and kill Alexa Cannon? So during the first week of Luisa being behind bars, she was actually sent to a mental health unit as her actions while she was awaiting her trial were extremely erratic and showed manic signs and even had the side effects of detoxing. Her life had been consumed by alcohol, drugs, but it also included insomnia. Now, as far as the defense goes, she had been suffering from the side effects of drug usage, that she had a psychotic episode. Luisa was enrolled in a mental health program thereafter, as there were underlying signs that she might have been suffering from an untreated mental illness for a very long time. Now, when you combine that with the alcohol, the drugs, and the lack of sleep, it can turn someone who is one of the most lawful and honest people into a monster who might be lurking in the night. The prosecuting attorneys were somewhat, I'm not going to say sympathetic to what had happened, but this was a very bad mix of issues that led to this event. Her defense attorney, Blair Howard, had worked with the prosecutors to show, in fact, that she was suffering from a psychotic episode when she killed her best friend, Alexa Cannon. Now, there was a period of about 8 months where the prosecution and defense kind of went cold, and they worked towards a final agreement. Luisa had waived her right to a preliminary hearing that was supposed to start on September 5th of 2019, and the final charge that she was facing was for second-degree murder, considering this was not premeditated, and she would be looking at a total of 40 years behind bars. The reason was that there was sufficient evidence showing probable cause that Luisa had killed Alexa. And the final judgment came on October 7th of 2019, in which Luisa had pled guilty to second-degree murder. And this is where Judge Joey Showalter had sentenced Luisa to 40 years, but he had suspended 20 of those years, meaning that she will only have to spend a total of 20 years behind bars, and she will be released when she is 41 years old. But after that, she will end up having to spend 10 years seeing a probation officer, and she will be mandated to seek mental health treatment, and she is strictly prohibited from speaking or making any contact with anyone in Alexa's family. Now, during her sentencing, most people had only ever seen Luisa on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, and it seemed like she had exchanged her makeup for shackles and her somewhat, fashionable outfits for a gray striped jumpsuit with a white long sleeve shirt underneath, because she wasn't wearing any makeup that she had and there was no filter over her face. But the one thing was, she did seem to be sympathetic. Now keep in mind, I am not justifying her actions at all, not in the very least. But the woman who stood shackled at her own sentencing didn't seem to be the person who took the knife, then took the life of her best friend. She had been undergoing mental health treatment for everything, and her freedoms were stripped from her because of what she had done. But she was given the opportunity to address the court, and this is what she had to say.
Yes, I'd like to make a statement. There are no words for this tragedy, and my heart is filled with sorrow and grief. My heart goes out to the Cannon family. I am so sorry. I take full responsibility for this. Again, I am so sorry for this tragedy. I'd like to thank my parents and friends for being by my side, as I am so thankful. And again, there are no words for this tragedy.
To me, I think that it was a deadly combination. Not for Luisa, but for Alexa. And with the untreated mental illness that she may have been suffering from, mixed with the alcohol, the drugs, the everything. It's really a tragedy. what transpired. We all have a personal responsibility. And as somebody who suffers from mental health issues, my sister gave me a quote where it says that mental health is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. And we all think that we're invincible when we're that young, when we're 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I mean, some people still think they're invincible to this day. That's why people should wear face masks, but that's just my personal opinion. But what happened to Alexa isn't fair, but it could have been prevented. Unfortunately, it did happen, and Alexa's family will always remember her. Her friends, her family, her classmates, and everyone who ever came into contact with Alexa, I can almost guarantee they have a small, burning part in their heart where Alexa had touched them. She was young, aspiring, devout, a Highlander, and although she left this world too soon, I can guarantee that she left this world a better place with her smile, passion, and her love that she had for everyone she ever came into contact with. So, may you rest in peace, Alexa, and thank you for all that you did. Luisa will be serving out her sentence as she rightfully should. And I hope now, since she's been incarcerated, she has a little bit more clarity as to who she is, and she has better plans for her future when she does get out. But that's something that only time will tell. And I'm not a mind reader, but she can never take back the death of Alexa. But I think that she can possibly do good with the tools in her toolbox that's been given to her by her mental health professionals and her 20 years of thinking about what she did. She'll never take it back, and the world is a little bit darker without Alexa Cannon. But that is going to do it. This is where I'm going to wrap up this episode. I want to give a very special thank you to the lovely Miss Heather Wright, who did the voice of Luisa for this episode. And be sure to check out Heather's podcasts, Nature vs. Narcissism, Ohio 88, and Status Pending. And another special thank you to the beautiful Miss Erin R. Ryan for voicing the part of Alexa. I couldn't have been able to do this episode without the both of you. But I thank you for being here with me, and before I sign off, I want to tell you about SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Because if you find yourself in a rough spot with drugs or addiction, or if you're in need of mental health services, it's a great place to look to try to find helpful outlets. And you can find the website, which is samhsa.gov, or you can call the number at 1-800-622-4357, or it's 1-800-622-HELP. There are always professionals like Alexa who are ready and willing to help you. Because, like I said, I'm a firm believer that mental health issues are not your fault, but they are your responsibility. Just as my mental health journey has brought me to where I am today, and it has saved my life multiple times. But if you think the show is worth a buck, please consider checking out the Murder and Such Patreon at patreon.com/Murder and Such. Or if you don't think the show is worth a buck, but you still want to do something nice, feel free to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That helps me more than you could ever imagine. As far as social media, you can find Murder and Such on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Murder and Such. And if you would like to follow me, Hunter, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, the PlayStation Network, and Steam at Huntor27. But we are still in these uncertain times with COVID-19, so please call someone that you love today. And please, for the love of God, wash your fucking hands. Be informed, be safe, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.